Hello and welcome back to the Checkpoint Reach podcast. This is a gaming and occasional movie news podcast. I'm your host Luke Eldon, and as ever, I'm joined by my fellow gamers and friends Sud, Matty and Perks. How you doing, guys?
Yeah, good. Not as good as I was 5 minutes ago, but still good, so we're all good.
Sud alluding
we're on
to
the right track.
A few technical issues of me forgetting to press record. So
Well, you forgot to press record.
yeah.
I thought this was just deja vu.
It could be, to be fair.
I wish it was, because it mean we'd had the previous 5 minutes, but there we are. How about you, Perks? How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm slightly disappointed my new week, new you joke got lost to
Yeah,
time,
there's just no point saying it
hey,
now. Just it won't have the same
It's
effect.
gone now, and it's
So,
not funny anymore.
no.
So, great start for us this week.
Yeah. No joke. We always have a joke, don't we, usually at the start, but none this week, I'm afraid, guys. Sorry.
Well, unfortunately, that's the way it goes sometimes. Anyway, we'll get started with our first topic of the day, which is the Anthem microtransactions controversy. It seems like EA is starting off as they always do by getting it wrong. Various cosmetic items have appeared on Reddit, and they seem to be going for around $20 a pop. Shards are the game's premium currency, and based on what we know, 100 shards is roughly $1. The picture that's been circulating around Reddit shows a javelin paint job for around 2,000 shards each, so for around $20 or £20. Obviously, this is a ridiculous price, I think, and it seems like EA just never seem to get these things right. What are your guys' thoughts on it?
Well, you just
Egan
said
said, "There's your joke for the week." EA.
Yeah, pretty much. There you go. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they just... What can you do apart from sigh? You know, it's like they can't seem to do anything right at the minute. You know, whether it's the controversy with the game itself with Anthem, whether it's the controversy with Battlefield 5, whether it's FIFA, there just seems to be always something at the minute that's, you know, I mean, even before that, you had Battlefront 2, and so it's like, it's just a never-ending, you know...
They just never learn.
Shitstorm, really, isn't it? It's just, you know, it's like, what... They can't seem to do anything right, and it's like, you know, they put all these £20 microtransactions in now for different colours and stuff like that for your Javelin. It's like, you know, if it was like something that was £1, £2, something like that, I don't think people would have many complaints. I mean, there'd always be people complaining about microtransactions, but if it was a reasonable price and it was something that was, you know, £1, £2, something that people weren't bothered about, it'd be fine. But once you start going past that £10 threshold and it starts getting towards 15, 20 and above, it just reeks of greed, doesn't it? It's like, and you know, you could argue the other way and say, you know, if people are stupid enough to buy them, then, you know, whatever. And you know, the old saying of something's only worth whatever someone else will pay for it. So there is that way of looking at it, and I think EA are they're just banking on the, you know, the rich people that can just come along and £20 they can just spend it like that and it's nothing to them.
Yeah, or the little Jimmies getting their parents credit cards, like we discussed a few weeks ago.
If I remember right, I remember them saying, I can't remember who said it, someone said it that there was an insider was saying about how, you know, EA, do you remember at the first when they had them, before they took them out originally, they had the microtransactions, didn't they? Was it in the beta or something? Whatever it was, or maybe when the game first came out when they didn't patch it, there was them ones where you could spend like 40 quid and stuff like that, wasn't there, on getting the upgrades faster and stuff. And they were saying that, you know, all the rich people, they can just live off the rich people that buy them. Because there's so many, like...
What was this for?
You know,
sorry, Battlefront 2?
I think it was Battlefront 2 they were talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
People were buying the stuff and getting upgraded. And, you know, it was like Darth Vader, wasn't it? It was a famous thing where it would take like 100 hours to unlock him or something before they changed it or something ridiculous.
Yeah, it was horrible.
So it was... Yeah, it was pretty mental, but
I just don't get how they don't learn. I mean, they've made so many mistakes and had their community, you know, turn on them, complain, explain what the community want, and then they're like, yeah, don't worry, we'll listen. And then the next game, no.
Yes.
Back to how
it mustn't matter to them, that's all I can think, that they make so much money that it's just irrelevant how much bad PR they get, because they know they're going to get people buying their stuff regardless.
Yeah, I think people should vote with their wallets with this one. That's the only way you're going to send a message. If not, I mean, obviously some people will buy them, but if enough people don't, then they'll have to reconsider their their pricing tiers. But anyway, I'd like to get Matty and Perks' thoughts on this.
Well, I think it's interesting with Sud just saying there they make so much money that it's sort of irrelevant to them what people think. They are coming off the back of one of their worst ever sort of financial returns. So slowly but surely we're reaching a point where it actually will mean something to them. I think on the sort of one we're focusing on right now with the Anthem sort of screenshot that's been all over the internet in the last week or so, I guess we're sort of using price association from other games, aren't we? We're saying that 2,000 shards will equate to, roughly X amount of pounds and dollars and so on.
Yeah.
If it does cost £20 for a skin, or close to, we'll say roughly for the time being, because we're not sure. This is a screenshot from a while back, or at least so they've said. But if it does cost £20 for a skin, then what we're saying is 2 skins basically equates to the full price of the game.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that's just
ridiculous.
Crazy to me. That just doesn't make any sense. I think, what else do we have on there? We've got some sort of, there's one thing on the screenshot called a fabric. There's a metal which look like they're going to sort of affect the way that the armor pieces actually look, so you can make them have different kind of appearances like that.
Mm-hmm.
And even they would be coming in at around the sort of £8 mark, which is crazy. And there's an emote on there which would be around £10. I mean, these aren't small things. We're not talking about £1 or £2 here for something that looks quite cool and it's a bit of a novelty and a few people pick it up. These are seriously steep prices if we're correct with our sort of price association with other games. And one of my biggest problems with sort of cosmetic microtransactions in general is that if they're in a game that's free to play or a non-AAA game, I understand it, because if the game's free to play or very, very cheap, they've got to make money somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But we're talking about a AAA game here, what should be or could be one of the biggest releases this year, and they're coming in with what we expect as astonishingly high price points for cosmetic microtransactions, and that's just bad. Like, that's bad practice. And they've obviously said that it's going to stay cosmetic and it's not going to influence the game or whatever. But one of the things that sort of set an alarm bell ringing for me is when I actually looked at that image. There's sort of an LB, RB if you're looking at the Xbox build at the top of the page there, and there's a few different tabs. So they're on the featured tab, which is the furthest left, and in the middle there's a tab for crafting. Now, crafting's not cosmetic. Crafting severely influences the game. So I would wonder where they've actually taken this screenshot from. If they were to have pressed right bumper and gone across to that middle tab, is there any microtransaction in the game that influences the actual gameplay? Because if there is, that's sort of shooting themselves in the face, let alone shooting themselves in the foot, because they've clearly stated so far that it's going to be purely cosmetic, and it's still wrong based on their price point or expected price point.
Yeah.
But my God, if they do another Battlefront 2 and have some way of paying for progress, that's an unbelievable error.
Surely not.
It really
surely
is.
not. They can't do. Surely. I mean, like you said, they've already come out and said they're all cosmetic. I mean, if you've said that and then they're not, then that is literally the ultimate betrayal.
Yeah.
Isn't it really? You can't be doing that, surely.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that's for sure. I'm just saying that based on that screenshot, there's
skeptical.
a little bit of a warning sign there, and I just think, please
bit
don't
worrying.
do that. Like, don't have people running around on day one having spent thousands of pounds, having made so much more progress than everyone else.
Sure,
we don't need another Battlefront 2. That's just bad. If that happens, then this game will... Wow, like the backlash will be so real.
We should say, though, that Bioware have also said that the pricing isn't concrete yet, haven't they?
They have, but
yeah.
I would say on that is that it's going to be close to.
Yeah,
we're not going to see it cut in half, right? If it's changed, it's going to be a little bit more, a little bit less than what we've seen on there, just to try and appease people. They're not going to start slashing prices left, right, and centre.
The pricing will be similar. It will probably be exactly the same, because if it wasn't, they would have just straight up come out and said that isn't right.
I agree.
Yeah, that's true, actually. That's a good point. So they probably are going to be in and around that that figure. I mean, this as well comes off the back of some news to do with EA regarding Ultimate Team. I believe perks at PAX have been banned in Belgium.
Yeah, it's been enforced on them by the Belgian authorities, if you like, because this has been a sort of a rolling topic for years now, hasn't it? As to whether sort of microtransactions
It's gambling.
do affect the gameplay are gambling when it's sort of loot box based and it's RNG based, and it's not like you're paying £20 for a skin. You could pay £20 and end up with absolute garbage, or the best thing in the game, and there's sort of way too much RNG with that.
Yeah, it's a slot machine. It like, you know how I feel about this. Sorry to interrupt, but I'm so impassioned about Ultimate Team packs and how it is just clearly gambling. Like, there's no two ways about it, to be honest with you. It's highly addictive. You get sort of animations in the packs that are very sort of fast-paced. They make you want to open more and more and more packs, and the main audience for this is children, and obviously they're more likely to get addicted to that form of entertainment. And it's just like a really, really shady business practice, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't mind it so much in Fortnite because people are buying the Battle Pass and 100 tiers are available and you can see what you will get for each tier. You know what you're buying. If you go onto the store in Fortnite and buy a skin, you know that's what you're going to get for your money. Whereas it's completely different with Ultimate Team packs. It's just like you said, completely and utterly random, number generated, and the actual chances of getting good players are so low that it means that people keep coming back for more and more and more and more if they want to progress in that version of the game.
I mean, we saw a while back with them, didn't they? In certain countries, they were forced to release the actual probabilities for getting certain things. I mean, there wasn't sort of a probability of getting every player, but it was high probabilities, low probabilities, and sort of mid-range for certain things. So they had to sort of give out a blanket sort of table of probabilities, like a table of contents as to what you could get with your money. But like you said, it's a slot machine, it's a scratch card.
But even with that perks, they were dishonest, because I don't know if you remember, but it said for Ronaldo and like the higher tier players, chances.
Yeah.
It didn't say that it was 0.00000000001%, which it most likely is. It just said less than 1%. So even with that, they just, again, resort to shady business practices, because they know if they actually release the odds of how likely it is to get maybe like a Ronaldo or Messi in a pack, it's probably one in like 50,000, I guess.
I mean, we can vouch, can't we, from previous experience many years ago that you and I were sort of big on Ultimate Team, and we know just how sort of dark this practice is firsthand. I think it's a good step that we've seen in Belgium just in the last couple of days, that it has been banned, and that they've only got until the end of January, which is basically tomorrow, to make those changes effective, so that anyone in Belgium can't purchase these things anymore. And they can still purchase them with the in-game currency and getting things that way, but we all know that takes thousands more hours, and people like the shortcut.
One point I'd like to make, though, just to interrupt you, is on the other side, trying to look at it from the other side a bit. Why has it took them so long? I mean, microtransaction and FIFA have been around for nearly 10 years, and they've only just banned them. It seems a bit strange to me. It seems, is this more of a political move, not sort of thinking more than a practical one?
Maybe it's to do with the gaming industry. Just the bigger it's got, the more attention it's got.
True, but I think
these
authorities, they're not daft. They monitor these things as soon as they appear. I mean,
I'd argue that they are daft. I'd argue a lot of people in power are daft.
But they should. This isn't even say. Why is this? All right. At first, maybe they didn't know, but after 3 or 4 years, when microtransactions started becoming a thing, why did they not ban them then? Why has it took? Unless it's been in court cases or legal battles or something. That's the only thing I can think. It's been tied up in court for so long, and they've only just been able to do it. But
I think culture always struggles, man. Culture always struggles to keep up with the gaming industry because it's so fast paced. And most of the people that are in power in these countries are probably, in their 50s, 60s. They don't really understand what's going on. So obviously it's one of them things where it takes a while for this to sort of filter through.
True. But is it a good thing that they've been banned completely? I mean, could they not have just maybe found a way to change them so that that you said the odds are a bit better, or there's a way that you can see what you're going to get more? I know with Ultimate Team it'd be difficult to do where you could see exactly what player you're going to get, but maybe there could be some system where you know exactly what type of player you're going to get, or you know what I mean.
The biggest problem with is if it is considered gambling, then you have to be 18, don't you? Obviously. Yeah. So then, how would you change the packs to not be gambling?
I suppose the only thing you'd do is
buy the player, wouldn't you? I guess.
Well, the only thing I suppose you could do is make it an 18 rated game,
which isn't going to happen, is it?
No, I don't think so either. But I think that's the only way you could do it, and it still be allowed in that form. In Belgium now, obviously in other countries it's fine because they haven't done any sort of rules for it. But if this is going to be a thing where we start seeing more European countries, and then I think EA have got a lot to think about, because would they ever? Could any of you foresee them ever making it an 18?
No. I just
so what do you think they'd do though instead? If they had to change, that's what
they'd probably find loopholes.
Yeah,
there's always loopholes, isn't there? So they'd probably find some way to, I don't know, implement a change that would mean that it doesn't count as gambling. I don't really know, but they'll find a way.
Well, you could just be able to buy the players outright, like you can in Fortnite, like you can in, well, obviously you don't buy players in Fortnite, but like I said, you know exactly what you're going to get for your money. And the worst thing is they'd probably still make just as much money, because if they did charge like 50 quid for Ronaldo, people would definitely pay it.
Oh yeah, there'd be so
I think they'd
many.
make even more money, to be honest. They might even make more money from it. I know people say, well, yeah, people keep spending because of this whole gambling nature and it's like addictive, but I think it'd be addictive, people getting like amazing teams and spending £100, £200 on it. And then people scrap their team and then want to buy more players. So
I don't think it would last as long, though, because obviously once you buy the best team you possibly can, then what? Whereas like with these, at the moment, with the way Ultimate Team's set up, it's always, I need to get a different player, because you can't just go out and buy the player that you want.
But what about if they did some sort of system where the more games you play, the more players you unlock to buy? Like maybe you start off with just like
different tiers or something.
Yeah, like you can, obviously you'd be able to buy like silver players or whatever and gold players, maybe like 75 to 80 rated gold players, and then you play a few more matches, you can unlock 80 to 82, and then 82 to 84, and then so on and so on.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that Belgium have done what they've done, because it's an ethical issue and it's one that needed tackling. Because obviously, you can go into a shop as a 10-year-old, and we used to buy, packs of Pokemon cards. That is technically, the same as buying Ultimate Team packs, but it's so much different when these kids are sort of isolated, locked up in their room, and they've got hold of their mum and dad's credit card or whatever it is. It's so easy to spend more and more and more money. And like I said, there probably is loopholes that EA can get around saying that this isn't gambling, because at the end of the day, they have got a case. If you go in and buy, like a little minifigure, and there's one of 6 minifigures in each pack, and you really want, whatever it is, the Incredible Hulk, and you don't get it, and then you keep buying, more packs to get the Hulk, then that is similar to buying Ultimate Team packs. But I just think it's more a matter of ethics, because we all know how much kids spend on Ultimate Team and how addicting it is. And it's one of them things where something needed to change, because I feel like the addictive nature of opening those packs could also be, a gateway into gambling addiction in later life as well.
I mean, yeah, that definitely can take an impact on someone and obviously make them more addicted. I'd agree with something like that.
It's hard to disagree with it, to be honest. I mean, it's exactly what it is, and it's been this way for so long. And like Matt said, I'm really pleased that Belgium in particular have sort of made a stand on it. And if we're fortunate, and well, I say that in the hope that everyone agrees with me on this, we'll start to see it in more countries and even bigger countries where the game's even more popular, because it will force them to change for the better, and it'll stop EA and other developers with other games if they choose to go down routes like this. It will force them to improve for the better, and I think that's what we want, right? We don't want them to just be so sort of dollar signs in their eyes. We want the best possible content in the best way. We don't want the best content but in a super shady way like it is right now.
Do we agree that EA's the worst culprit for microtransactions and loot boxes?
I think overall, yes. I think there's been examples of games that have probably done it even worse. But overall, on a grand scale, EA has done it probably in the most big name titles.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes it seem worse. If someone does it in some indie title that's worse, no one's going to care because only, say, 2,000 people played the game or whatever. Whereas, you've got millions of people playing FIFA and Battlefront and Battlefield and so on. So, yeah, I think that's the reason why you'd say at the minute EA is getting the brunt of it. But we've seen this in. I mean, do you remember Shadow of War? The microtransactions that were awful.
Oh yeah,
they completely affected the game. I mean, at the time that was no one talks about it now because they've took them out, but that was Warner Brothers, wasn't it? And they shouldn't get off lightly because they tried to do it as well. So, but and Ubisoft as well, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, to a lesser extent because they don't affect the game as much, but they're still there. So.
Yeah,
I think Rockstar with
it depends because they're not gambling.
Shark cards too.
Yeah.
Like I know it's not gambling. You know exactly what you're getting for your money, but they absolutely changed the way the game is. I think microtransactions have evolved over the years since we first seen them to a point where now they're on par with the actual release of the game itself. Right, they're such a big part of it.
Yeah,
and they're not just small gimmicky add-ons anymore. They're so important to any game that releases, and maybe important to the success and failure of the game, which is perhaps why sort of stories like this gain a lot more traction a lot more quickly.
Yeah, well, I actually think it's only going to get worse as well, to be honest with you, because obviously the distribution method for games is changing. We've already seen Xbox, experimenting with Game Pass. Obviously, that's been a successful venture for them. That Sony are probably going to go all in on PS Now next generation. And as these games become free to play in abbreviation marks, because obviously you're still paying a subscription, but they will be essentially free to play, a way of developers making more money out of that will be to include microtransactions. And it makes even more sense from a business point of view to include microtransactions with these sort of games on Game Pass or on PlayStation Now, because more people are going to have, get their hands on the game, as opposed to paying 40 quid for the game. They don't have to pay anything for the game. So obviously they're going to make their money back by implementing microtransactions.
Yeah, that's a bit of a worry, actually, isn't it? It's actually a big worry for Microsoft, especially because they've already started putting the first party games on there, and you do think, don't you? Like, it's hard to envisage a big first party game coming out now for Microsoft where there's not going to be some sort of microtransaction component, because they'll, like you said, they'll want to get their money back and stuff. But hopefully, never know, that might not be the case, but that is the long-term worry as well for PS Now as well, if that kicks on with Sony next generation as well. It's a bit of a worry, but we'll have to see how that goes.
It is. It's something that we'll definitely be keeping an eye on as gamers, and I think a lot of people will as well. However, I want to move this on to the next topic that we have to talk about here, and it's that Metro Exodus. They have signed an exclusive deal with Epic Games Store. Valve says this is unfair, as they would, because this game has been on Steam for a while now as well, with pre-ordering. However, customers can still get their Metro Exodus through Steam if they previously pre-ordered through the service. Obviously, the Epic Games Store is there to challenge Steam. I think it's the only legitimate challenger they've had in this space. I mean, I can't think of anyone else that has even come close.
No, there's been no one. I mean, there's been I think EA tried their own little thing, didn't they? I think they've still got it going, but it never kicked on really. But I do find it's funny actually when you read out that bit about Epic saying it's unfair. It's a bit rich, really, isn't it?
Steam,
Epic.
Valve said it's unfair.
Sorry, not Epic. Yeah, I apologise. From Steam, from Valve saying it's unfair. Bit rich, really, from Steam. Really, considering they've dominated the market for the last 10 years plus and absolutely monopolised it. I mean, it's a little bit rich.
Well, I think that they've monopolised and dominated the market through service. Their service being superior as opposed to exclusives. I'm sure there probably has been some games exclusive to Steam, but it never seems to be something that they've pushed. And obviously, Epic, we spoke about this weeks ago on one of the earlier podcasts about this store and how they were going to sort of break into that market. Obviously, they've got Fortnite, which is a massive pull, but now they're just throwing their weight around with money, procuring a few exclusives, and obviously I don't think it's unfair, but it is sort of immoral because it's not something that's ever really been done in the PC space, is to have exclusive games to a certain storefront. So it's going to be interesting to see whether
I disagree with. I disagree. I'm not sure about the immoral part of it, because at the end of the day, they're a business, so they've got every right to buy exclusives. If they've offered enough money to, for the developers or publishers of Metro, then what's the problem?
Have we ever felt immoral about PlayStation and Sony and Microsoft?
No, that's what I mean. We don't look at it that way. We don't look at Sony signing a second party.
It's an established business practice though on consoles. Like, exclusives and consoles have always gone hand in hand. The PC market has always been very sort of open source and open minded, and it's always like leaned towards players being able to do what they want with their content. So being forced to download a game through a certain store has proven in the past not to work. Like you say with EA and Origin, I'm sure they'd make a lot more money selling the games through Steam than they would selling them exclusively through Origin, because people just don't want to have 5 different clients on their PC. They don't want to have a Ubisoft store and then Origin and then Steam. They just want one sort of client where they can play all their games. And obviously Steam is the main choice for most players. So I think PC gamers are very a lot more stubborn. So I to be honest, even though Metro Exodus is going over to this Epic store, I don't think it's going to entice many PC gamers to log into that Epic store at all, to be honest with you.
No, I'd agree with that, but the thing I'd say is, who says that Steam should have this monopoly of being the one that does everything? That's not that. They don't get the right to say, well, who cares about we're the most popular, we control 90% of the PC, so what? Other people come on the block, this is what happens in business, this is what happens in life. Things come and go. Like, no one says that, who says that Steam's got the right to exist forever? At the end of the day, Steam's had a good run at the end of the day, and actually Steam is starting to dwindle a little bit, so clearly there is some effects going on.
I think if Epic are going to throw their money into this space, they should do it by providing a superior service, not just buying up exclusives, because it doesn't create a good sort of PR situation for themselves.
No, I know what you're saying, but I think a lot of people recently have been moaning at Steam as well for being a bit complacent with their services. They've kind of
However, they are offering a better service to publishers, aren't they?
The 12%.
They're only taking a 12% cut.
That's a big thing, and I don't know if you saw in that article as well, they're actually going to be selling Metro on the Epic Store for $50 instead of $60. So that's a good thing for consumers. So that might entice people to buy it. It'd entice me to buy it. If I was a PC gamer, I'd be going straight to the Epic Store and paying $10 less. Why wouldn't you?
I think to stick with the sort of main theme of the article, when they said it was unfair, they didn't say it was unfair that they had competition. They said it was unfair that basically the fact that Metro has been available to pre-order for such a long time on their client.
I think that's a PR spin, though, to be honest, Perks. I think they're worried about the Epic Store.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And they're using that as a PR spin to say, like, no, we think it's unfair to our customers, blah, blah, blah. But really, they think it's unfair that
they're not happy with
Epic
on. Coming on their land, are they? You know what I mean?
Well, they're not happy with competition because, like you said, they've monopolized it for so long. But I think we can all, quite coherently agree that, if we'd all pre-ordered something on a certain client and then just 2 weeks? What is it, like just over 2 weeks before Exodus comes out?
Yeah,
that gets taken from us and we get pushed in a different direction. We'd all be kind of thinking, what's going on here? So
yeah, but you're still getting the game if you pre-ordered on Steam.
Yeah, you are, but you're being sort of pushed in another direction now that you might not have wanted to go in. But I don't know, maybe I'm playing devil's advocate with it, but for me, the bottom line is they're definitely concerned because Epic, as well as they're doing in this day and age, that they have to be, right? Valve have to be scared by that. And I do also understand their point that it's not great that they've been allowed to sort of have these pre-orders for such a long time, and then all of a sudden we don't actually we're honouring it because they're still getting the game, but not in the place that they thought they were.
Yeah, I think the biggest worry for Valve should be if Epic Games Store does take off and publishers start going because of the 12% cut. To be honest.
Yeah, that is a big thing. That 12% cut. I remember when the news first came out, and you're thinking, they're really going for this.
Yeah,
that's really a really big percentage. What was Steam's again? Was it 20%?
I think
25%.
I think
that's a big incentive for publishers.
Does it start lower and then goes higher the more the sales hit? I believe, like once you hit over 40 million. I can't remember though off the top of my head.
I still think it's a great incentive, especially for maybe not the absolute top developers, but for games like Metro, sort of. I wouldn't say it's a small game but it's a smaller game than the big hitters, for example. For a game like that, it could be massive. Because that Metro game is the sort of game that it needs to sell a certain amount, or else the company's in trouble. It's not like EA releasing FIFA and it doesn't sell as much as last year. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. They're going to keep making them forever. Or
yeah.
Or even like a big game like Sony with Uncharted. If one comes out and doesn't sell as much, it doesn't really matter too much because the others have sold so well. But for games like Metro that are going to be relying on this selling well because they've pumped a lot of money into this game by the looks of it, and it looks like it's going to be a great game. I hope it is, but if the game doesn't sell well, then there might not be another one again. So
true, but
going with Epic might save them.
As well, Epic will probably promote their game for them with it being exclusive. Also, I looked up the Steam revenue split, and apparently Valve typically has taken about 30% of all Steam sales through the platform. However, now for games that sell between $10 million and $50 million, the revenue split goes down to 25%. So it's still nowhere near. That's
such a strange way of doing it. Why have they done it that way? I found that really strange. They've done it in that way. They're basically saying that the big publishers get a break because their games are going to sell that well, whereas smaller games that need a bit of help. Oh, sorry. Well, if you've got a small game, it's 30%. I just think this is what I mean about we say about trying to justify them saying it's unfair, but I just don't think there is any justification for them saying this sort of thing's unfair. They need to improve their practices if they're not happy about it. If they're not happy about competition, improve your practices. Because clearly they've rested on their laurels for so long now with this 30% thing because no one else had the money or the funding to create a rival platform that was equal to it.
Well, wasn't the thing that we discussed last time about resting on their laurels that
I think this is
that they'd let in so many different games on just a vast amount of games.
It's just absolute crap. There's absolute rubbish on there. There's just unimaginable. I know we talked about even on the Xbox and PlayStation. There's a lot of trash coming over that I don't want to see on the store. You look through the store now on these platforms, and it's absolute rubbish. Half the games that come out, there's 20 games that come out a week, and half of them are just phone games that cost £4 or £5, and it's why would I pay that?
Yeah.
So that's something that needs to be addressed. Actually, I think. Hopefully next generation might address it, but it could also go worse. But just going back to the point about the rival platforms, Steam for a long time have rested on their laurels, and if they carry on the way they're going, they will lose customers, and they already are losing customers. I think they're not as popular as they were 2 or 3 years ago, and maybe the Epic Game Store won't be as popular as people think. Maybe it will. We'll have to wait and see. But I think it's a reminder to Valve that they need to keep their foot on the pedal,
Yeah, I think it is a wake-up call for them, and they do have competition. Something
Definitely.
as well that I've seen, I believe sorry about I believe the Division 2 is also exclusive to Epic Game Store.
Yep, I think that it's probably not as controversial, that one, because that's been in the pipeline for longer.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what I mean. It shows you that clearly these companies are going, hang on a minute. Yeah, okay, Steam has a much bigger user base and things like that, but if we're getting more money for our games, then it might be worth taking the risk.
Yeah. And
going over.
Epic Games has become quite a player, hasn't it, in this space?
Yeah, exactly.
Due to one game.
Epic aren't going to run out of money anytime soon. So it's not like it's going to be one of them platforms that runs out of money. So they've got Fortnite, which is probably going to last them for another 20 years, the way it's going. So
it's a big
maybe
prediction.
Forever. I don't know, but
a bold prediction: 20 years of Fortnite.
Well, would it shock anyone if it was still around in 10, 15 years' time? In some form or another. It might not be Fortnite, but there's some version of it.
I don't know. Everything seems to drop off at some point.
Things do drop off,
but some do have
no sign of
longevity.
Fortnite dropping off at the minute. It's just getting bigger and bigger.
It
so
is.
we'll see, but I don't think
Probably a topic for another day. It's that big. I think you can talk about that
you could. You really could
for a long time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think you could. However, we'll move on to the next topic. Topic number 3, which is Quantic Dream teams up with NetEase Games, Chinese giant NetEase. I believe that's right, isn't it, Perks?
Yeah, they're the company I mentioned a few weeks back when we talked about the future of Bungie after the Activision split. I said I think it was over 100 million they got from NetEase to fund a sort of non-Destiny related future project. And yeah, that wasn't all we've heard of them now with the sort of Quantic Dream partnership, if you like.
Yeah, apparently it's going multi-platform now as a result of this partnership.
I think it's really interesting because NetEase, as I explained a few weeks back, they're predominantly relating themselves, or at least to this point in time, with online services and online games. And Quantic Dream, I'm not saying they've never had anything that relates to online, but let's be honest, they excel in the sort of single player and the narrative markets.
Just to chip in here, I think it's the things that are online in, especially in Detroit, where the choice made, where it's like, 53% of people did this or did that. I think that's probably the side of it, maybe.
Right, but that's not a massive
But it is an
thing,
online service that's needed. It's something they're getting analytics from somewhere, aren't they, for that? So.
Yeah, I agree, but look, that's not like a massive... I mean, I'm no developer and I'm no sort of web host or whatever, but the thing is, stuff like that's not the most difficult thing to put together, is it? I mean, that's purely percentage based. We're not talking about
I don't know. I don't...
always online shared world shooters or MMORPGs. That's just numbers, and that's quite different. So I'd be very surprised if they've come together just for statistics and numerical data in their games.
But we don't know, maybe the next project, it's expanding that or something. I don't think, I know what you're alluding to, maybe they're going to do some online. I don't think they're going to do, I think they know their roots, Quantic Dream. I don't think they're going to do some all online thing. I just can't see it.
I'm not alluding to it. Like, that's not my prediction at all. I'm saying it's quite strange because NetEase is so big in the online market and Quantic Dream not so much.
True.
I'm not sure about the partnership there. I'm not sure how it makes sense unless we're going to see something completely different. But one thing's for sure is that I'm interested in it, and I'm interested in NetEase because they're coming. We spoke a little bit earlier on today off the show, and you mentioned they're sort of making plays on the Western market now. So
yeah, they are. Yeah, they're making inroads into it.
And if they're going to keep sort of lining themselves up with top developers and top companies, then I am interested to see what comes of it. One
thing it is good for is Xbox fans, because now you'll see some of their games come across. You won't see their games that they've done, but you'll see future games come across, which is always a good thing.
Does Sony still hold the IP rights for Heavy Rain and Detroit and all that?
I know definitely Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls. I don't know about Detroit, but I would imagine it's Sony's.
I would guess. See Heavy Rain 2. Heavy Rain 2, The Return of Jason.
Jason! I gotta find Jason.
Great game, but I think that...
How would you even do Heavy Rain 2? Sorry, Sud. How would you even do Heavy Rain 2?
I don't think you could, to be honest. But I think with Quantic Dream, they tend to do...
Jason never died. It was a conspiracy.
What, he didn't get... Was he the one who got hit by the car?
Yeah, he's the one. You lose him at the start of the game. Yeah. Well, yeah, he dies at the start of the game.
Yeah, spoiler.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Yeah, the game's only been out 10 years.
If you haven't played like an 11-year-old game, if you haven't played the first 5 minutes of an 11-year-old game, then there's a big spoiler for you.
Yep.
Exactly.
Sorry, Sud, what were you saying about Quantic Dream?
No, I was just saying they tend to do new IP, don't they, every time? I don't think have they ever done a sequel? I don't think they have, so...
I don't believe so.
I'm pretty sure they haven't, unless it's something from a long, long time ago. But, because even in the PS2 days, they did Fahrenheit, didn't they? And that wasn't... there wasn't a sequel to that, so...
Every game that Quantic Dream have made has been this sort of like narrative choice-based game, so I can't see, regardless of who they've been acquired by, I can't see them ever doing any sort of different game. So... Maybe, like you said, already alluded to, maybe this is just a play to sort of get themselves their foot in the door in the Western market. Obviously, Quantic Dream are a good enough developer. I don't think there's a huge market for these type of games anymore, though, to be perfectly honest with you. Maybe
No,
maybe
although
they'll go
Detroit ended up
episodic.
selling 2 million copies, which isn't anything
It's
to be
good.
sniffed
It's
at,
good for what it is.
but-
But do you also feel like if a game like Detroit was multi-platform, it might have sold less? Just
Yeah, that's the.
obviously they had Sony quite heavily pushing it as an exclusive. Whereas if it goes multi-platform, I think it might just get lost in the
I think
absolute mush of games that comes out every year.
I think that Quantic Dream name might obviously get people, loyal fans of the games will still buy it.
Yeah, I'll probably buy it.
Because it's not like it's going away. Yeah, it's not like it's going off PlayStation. They're just going to be on Xbox and possibly Switch as well, and PC, I imagine. So, maybe we've talked before, haven't we, about some games. So I alluded to Spider-Man. I thought if it had been on Xbox as well, I'm not sure it would have got as many sales as it did
Are you sure,
on PlayStation. Not on
don't know,
PlayStation.
Spider-Man's
It wouldn't have.
pretty popular
It would
character.
not have sold. It wouldn't have been selling 10 million copies on PlayStation if it was multi-platform. If you get what I'm trying to say.
Right, I got
Like
you.
it'd have been more split because
I feel like it'd
that's
hit
what I
more than
mean.
10 though, across both.
possibly, but I don't know if it would have been much more. I think PlayStation, it would have been down on PlayStation, and I think Xbox don't tend to buy as many games as PlayStation anyway. And Spider-Man's kind of associated with PlayStation now, I don't know, but I think they're probably thinking that they've had a good run with Sony, haven't they? They've been around for Sony platforms. I think they've been releasing games on Sony platforms for over 10 years now, since PS2 days. So they've had a good run with Sony. They're probably thinking, we'll try something new, go multi-platform, try and find a new audience on Switch or Xbox or PC, wherever they decide to go. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they do in the future. Probably be a while though, because they take a long time to make their games. So you're probably looking at another 3 or 4 years before you see anything concrete from them. But it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, what's next in David Cage's mind?
Exactly. There's
I mean,
a lot of things rattling in that cage, isn't there? So
were we all fans of Detroit?
I mean,
Or was it
yeah,
actually only
okay.
me and you who played it?
Yeah, only me and you that played it, but
Yeah, I didn't get around to playing it, to be honest.
You liked it a lot more than me. I thought it was good. I just
I
didn't
did.
think it was great. So
I preferred
I
it
thought
more
it could
than
have been
Heavy
better,
Rain,
but-
actually.
a lot of people think, I think you're in the majority with it. I think a lot of people do think it's the best game. I don't think so, but I'm probably in the minority with that.
Yeah.
But it was a good game. It was a good step forward in terms of the technology they used, and the voice acting was far superior to their previous efforts. So voice acting was really on par in this game. So
Yeah.
and that's always
true.
been the thing, hasn't it? People laughed at Heavy Rain for the voice acting, and it was a different era, but they had to address that. So they did that well. The story was pretty
As
good
funny
as,
as
well,
that Jason thing is, and as bad as it's done, or as badly as it's done, it's iconic now, isn't it?
Yeah. And the game was great, wasn't it? Heavy Rain was a great
Jason!
game.
It's so good. It's so good. That YouTube video that went round as well of the guy just walking out in public doing it.
Yeah, that was funny. I remember
Mega
that.
64.
That was
Who
it.
can forget?
Yeah, it was great. I remember that. But because I don't know if any of you did, but I went back to play Heavy Rain a couple of years ago when they released it on PS4, and that game definitely hasn't aged well. Like the story's still good, but the movement's terrible. It's clunky. It's a really awkward game. The voice acting's bad. So some games like that just don't age well, do they? And I think
No.
Quantic Dream games in general probably aren't games that'll age well. Even Detroit, you'll probably look back on that in 10 years and go, oh, this doesn't look great. But
Yeah, that's true. I think with most games, though, it tends to be the case, doesn't it?
yeah, there's some games that stand the test of time, but it's quite rare nowadays that you can go back to a game and go, oh, this is great,
True. However,
So
going back to a game, topic number 4, which is Resident Evil 2. I know, Sud, you've been able to play it. You've managed to complete it. I know Perks also finally purchased it today, which I'm surprised it took you so long, to be honest, Perks.
She bought a game.
Miracles do happen. Yeah, I finished installing it just before we started it, so I'm really looking forward to getting into that as soon as possible.
Yeah, I
So,
thought
yeah.
we could get Sud's non-spoiler review
I'll try
sort
not
of
to
thing.
be spoilery. I mean, I know you've played the game before, but there is new
Well,
things in it, so
Yeah, we're not
Don't
just
spoil
saying
it too
avoid
much.
spoilers for us. I mean, avoid
no, there's
spoilers
other
for
people that never
everybody.
played it, but Yeah, so yeah, I think I've probably put about 15 hours into it. I did the first playthrough, that took me about 10 hours, and I'm about halfway through the second playthrough. So yeah, about 15 hours I think I've put into it, maybe a bit less, but it's great. It's exceeded my expectations. I knew the game was going to be good because when you see all the first impressions, and you could just tell by looking at it the game was going to be good. I tried to avoid too much on it because I wanted to be surprised when I played the game, and it's been great. It's what they've managed to do so well is very hard sometimes with remasters and remakes. Is sometimes when you play these remasters and remakes, they still feel really old and a bit antiquated, but this doesn't feel like that at all. Like, even though it's using even though some of the mechanics are obviously very similar or same to the original, they don't feel old. It feels nice, and it feels nice to play a nice, tight, compact game that, it's not the longest game in the world. Like, my first playthrough, not looking at like guides or anything, was 9 hours, which isn't long, but for a Resident Evil game, 9 hours is fairly long, I suppose, because in the past, people have completed them in 3-4 hours or whatever. But I like the fact that they've added a lot of replayability to the game as well. Even when you complete the game, there's a nice gameplay loop to it that makes you want to play it again. There's something addictive about it, and I've got to say that I think obviously the two main villains in the game are great. I don't want to obviously spoil this, people haven't played it, but I think everyone that's watched videos knows that one of the main villains is obviously the Tyrant, the big thing that chases you around, and he's got his hat on and stuff. But fantastic villain. You really do feel a sense of dread when you're in the police station and you can hear footsteps, and it's like, is he on the floor above me? Is he on the floor below me? Is he on my floor? If I open this door, will he be outside the door?
I think you compared it to Alien Isolation in that sort of way.
Yeah, it's similar. I don't think it's as personally. I don't think it's as bad as Alien Isolation. That's one of the scariest games I've ever played. But there's definitely a fear there and a trepidation when you go through doors. Oh, that game was Alien. I couldn't handle Alien. It was too much for me. It was horrible. But
did you complete
the synthetics? It was
no,
the
I didn't complete it.
The synthetics were the scariest part.
They were pretty freaky looking, but yeah, it's great. I think all of us, any of us that have played it, enjoy it. I think you'll especially enjoy it, Perks. Like, that's definitely a game as well. If you like getting scared, you play that at midnight or something. At night with headphones on in the dark. It's very scary. Especially the whole game's quite scary, but especially the start of the game, the police station. It's really well done. It's just great.
I just really enjoyed
it.
Tyrant though, that he's got his hat on.
Yeah,
that's what makes him great. He wears a fedora.
Yeah, it's great. This little fedora. I don't know if he had that in the original. I think they've added that in, but
that character model has been completely redone. Like, it isn't anything anywhere near the same as it was in the originals.
It's just great.
I don't know. Apparently, like, I haven't played the game, but apparently, according to some of the reviews I read, it gets quite tedious. Tyrant is interesting at the start, but then obviously as the game goes on, you just get sick of it.
I didn't really feel that, to be honest. There is obviously another main villain in it as well. There's not just Tyrant, but Tyrant's the one near the start. But there is, as you progress through the game, you go to
basically.
What? Sorry.
But spoilers. Like, you don't want to talk about the second one.
But I mean, it's not. I've not said who it is. It's not that much. In a Resident Evil game, there's not just going to be one enemy, is there? There's going to be a few. There's usually a couple, 2 or 3 bosses in every Resident Evil. But
yeah, spoiler alert: the main boss in Resident Evil 2 is at corpse.
There is a lot of corpses. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's not the main boss.
Even I've not even talked about the zombies. The zombies as well are really good. The character models on the zombies are fantastic. Like, probably the best character models I've seen for zombies, which you'd expect because it's a new game, but it's fantastic character models, and they've definitely took a lot of inspiration from Resident Evil 7. There's no doubt about it. Like, obviously it's not the first person perspective, but there's just elements in that game that feel like Resident Evil 7 as well, which I think is really good. I've said it, to me it's like a mashup of Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 4, and Resident Evil Revelations. That's the mashup that I'd say it is, Perks.
Well, don't say that to Perks, because Resident Evil 4, even though the best Resident Evil is his most hated game.
Well, I just mean in terms of the way the guns feel and move and stuff, not really in terms of the game, but that's the mashup. We played a lot of Resident Evil Revelations, didn't we, early last year? And there's a lot of the game that reminds me of that game, actually. I don't know what it is. I think it's just the tight corridors, because on Revelations you're in the ship, aren't you? And it's tight corridors, and it's quite similar to the police station.
Yeah, it's just
Which
a
is
more
great.
sort
I
of
love it.
modern way they've started to present the game. I know 7 was a little bit different with it being in
7 was
first person, but I like the way that they present the third person version of Resident Evil these days. Well, granted, like Matt mentioned, it took me a while to accept it and get used to it because, look, I sort of grew up with
You hate change.
Yeah, I grew up with the sort of tight fixed place like CCTV type cameras, and it really did make the game scary as hell.
Yeah,
you could hear things, you couldn't see them, and it gave you that sense of dread. But they've translated that into the modern sort of way.
Do you not think that Resident Evil 7 is going to be a one-off? Because I don't think they'll make another Resident Evil in that mold. I think that was it was an Outlast clone, basically. That's what it was. They thought, oh, what works in survival horror these days? People like the Silent Hills demo. People liked Outlast, so let's just copy that. I don't really like that, to be honest. I feel like
you can't say clone. Perk's got in trouble for Destiny clone.
Yeah, you'll be getting Outlast fans.
Well, if there's any rabid Resident Evil Biohazard lovers out there, I mean, come and debate me if you think that's not an Outlast clone, because it is literally an exact clone of Outlast.
Yeah, they added different elements. To be fair, I think it's not. I know what you mean. They took a lot of ideas from Outlast. I mean, but
it's Outlast with a Resident Evil skin.
It could have been.
But anyway, regardless,
right.
I think Resident Evil's always been associated with combat as well. Like it's about combat and sort of ammo management and things like that. And obviously in Resident Evil 7, there was small elements of combat, but it wasn't really like a main focus of the game. So I don't think like maybe that style is suited to any sort of combat. I feel like the third person over the shoulder camera is a better fit. So it'd be interesting to see what they actually do with Resident Evil 8.
Yeah, no, I agree. Resident Evil 8 is going to be an interesting one because they have got a decision to make. Do they go third person or do they go first person? What's great is though they've got the option to do it, because I thought Resident Evil 7 was really good. I really enjoyed Resident Evil 7. I thought the first person would work well in that game. But now that I've played Resident Evil 2 Remake in third person, it's like, I don't know, I kind of like this as well. So it's like, it's a tricky one. But yeah, just going back to Resident Evil 2 as well. That's another thing that does. The combat is fantastic in the game. It's, sometimes in certain Resident Evil games, the combat's been a bit clunky, hasn't it, and stuff like that. Even in 4, like Resident Evil 4 is my favorite Resident Evil game, but you go back to play that game now and it feels very clunky and the gunplay feels a bit strange and stuff. So they've done a lot of good work with this remake in that regard. And
which Resident Evil is the one where you're in Africa? That's the only one I've ever played.
That was Resident Evil 5.
Yeah, that's
when it started going downhill. Like, it was fine. It was a decent game, Resident Evil 5, but it started going downhill.
Ouroboros.
But what I think's great is, and I think you'll agree with this, Perks, it's just great to see Resident Evil back in form. It's just great to see 2 hits in a row. Like, I know you maybe weren't the biggest fan. Yeah, I know, but I think he knows what he's getting into this game. Like, they've seen the reviews and the games.
I didn't even need to see the reviews. I mean, when I spoke about it last week as here's what we're going to see in the next sort of week of releases, you know how good it's going to be. And let's not lie, it took them a long time to get there. They've had a lot of sort of missteps along the way, or you think, is this series dead now?
Yeah. Well, that's it, yeah. After 6 weeks,
like the zombies, it's come back to life. So I'm pleased about that. It looks like it's where it needs to be, and I think sort of just flitting back and forth just for 1 second there before I ask you a question about Resident Evil 2. I would be interested to see if they're going to continue with the theme of sort of first person for the mainline titles, so 8 and so forth for the time being, whilst that was succeeding, and then keep on making the sort of remakes or the remasters in the sort of now Resident Evil 2 format, because I'm sure they're going to present 3 in the same way, because they have to.
3 would have to be. I think Resident Evil 3 remakes a certainty now, personally. I think actually it might even be already in development. That was a rumor, and it wouldn't shock me, because Resident Evil 3, like I think we discussed before, is a lot of people's favorite Resident Evil game. It's one of them sort of cult classic Resident Evils, isn't it? That a lot of the true fans say is like the best one and stuff.
I actually said to you, I think the other day, like everyone wanted Resident Evil 1 remade, and they loved it, and then they were like, actually, no, we really love Resident Evil 2, and then they want that remade, and here it is. And again, you can see in the numbers and the returns it's getting, not just financially, but in scores as well.
Yeah.
Resident Evil 3 remade would do exceptionally well. But I think one thing that I'm interested to see in Resident Evil 2, and obviously don't give too much away here, but
No.
with the orphanage being part of the game now, which
Yeah.
we didn't see previously, how important is that? Is that an area that sort of lives up to the police station expectations, or is it just something you could sort of take or leave?
Well, interestingly enough, that's the part of the game that I've just done on my second playthrough. It's because it's weird because obviously the campaigns, as you probably know, have different areas. Like some areas are in one campaign, some are not in the other, and they kind of switch a little bit what areas you're in. But I've just done the orphanage, and it was I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it wasn't a massively lengthy section of the game, but I think it was serviceable and it did its job because that's obviously a new section, isn't it? They've added in that wasn't in
exactly.
But yeah, I really enjoyed. I don't want to. It's hard to say without giving anything away, but I enjoyed it, and I think it didn't feel out of place with the game. I think it was it felt authentic, and it didn't feel out of place. It didn't feel like they were just adding it in. It felt like actually this, it added something to the story. So I enjoyed that, and actually that's the part of the game where I think it takes inspiration from 7. Actually, that's one of the parts I would say that it reminded me, that part in the orphanage, of things in 7, and I think they've definitely looked at that and gone, we can incorporate this in this game and stuff. But I enjoyed it, and I think you'll enjoy it when you play it as well.
I'm just glad to know that it fits, because obviously the police station's so iconic. You wouldn't need to be told it was Resident Evil when you saw it. You just know. So as long as the orphanage doesn't feel tacked on and it fits the sort of story well, and it fits the game theme well, then that sounds really good to me.
It didn't take me, when I went into it, I wasn't thinking, what's this? This is a bit stupid. They've had it. I just felt like I was playing the game. It's obviously that section is, it's a little bit different. I don't want to give too much away, but the experience is a bit different from when you're in the police station. But it doesn't feel like, this is a complete, misstep or anything like that. I thought it was fine.
Good.
So,
well, nice positive review there, as I expected it anyway. I know you guys are big fans, and by all accounts, the remaster or remake's pretty bloody good. So
I think, just to finish on it, I think I'd definitely say it's a Game of the Year contender. I know it's early on, and maybe people get a bit weird, don't they? Like, can you give a remake a Game of the Year? But I think so. I think it's definitely up there. I'm not saying it'll win it, because there's obviously a lot of great games to come out this year, but it's an early Game of the Year contender for me.
Yeah.
I think you can definitely give a remake Game of the Year. I don't think you can give a remaster Game of the Year, but building something from the ground up and taking it from so many years back and not just sort of throwing a new coat of paint over it. Yeah, that can definitely count as Game of the Year.
Just one more thing as well. It was something like remakes. I think as much as Resident Evil 3 would be big, I think they're building up to the Resident Evil 4 remake, because that will be huge. If that ever comes out, if they remake it.
I didn't even want to say it because Perks will attack me.
Yeah. But to be fair, I think Perks is in the minority.
Oh, why would you want to remake the worst Resident Evil? You probably think it's worse than Raccoon City, don't you?
Well, we all know that Raccoon City is the best game in the Resident Evil franchise, so...
You joked about them remaking Raccoon City. If they ever remake that, I just thought it'd be the end. They better never remake that one. That was awful.
If they remake Resident Evil 4, I'm going to buy the game for you, Perks, and make you play the game again and apologise to me when you completed it.
Well, I think I already said, about 10 minutes ago, or maybe 15 minutes ago, when it changed, I didn't like it back then, because, you hadn't even played the previous Resident Evils when you hit 4, had you? So 4 was, your first take on it, your first experience of it. And for me, going from sort of 1, 2, 3, Code Veronica and stuff, to 4, I was like, what the hell is this? This isn't Resident Evil. And it just didn't appeal to me back then. But now, having seen how well it actually works in that sort of way of presentation, I'm all for it. I don't mind that as a thing. If it comes to light, 4 being remade, that's fine.
I've just thought of another one as well. You mentioned it, Code Veronica. That's another one they could easily remake, I think. Because it actually is very similar to 2, isn't it? In terms of the way it plays and everything. Yeah,
very much so. All the old games that were released in that sort of generation, they could all be remade from the ground up, and we've seen it already. So I don't.
One other thing as well about Resident Evil 2 is, I don't know if any of you noticed, they're actually releasing free DLC for it as well. 3 new little story packs, which is really good. I think that's great. I think it's fantastic they're doing that. I think I don't know the complete details, but I think you play as like 3 unknown survivors of the police station or something, and you look at the game from their perspective and play it. So that'll be interesting as well. So it's good to see that they're like not just leaving the game; they're actually like doing little updates to it and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that comes out soon as well. I think it's mid-February or maybe late
That's quite
February
cool,
that comes
actually.
out. So I think it's three different stories. They might only be short. You may be looking at maybe an hour long for each one or something, but it's still a cool little thing they've added in.
Yeah,
Look forward
definitely.
to playing them.
Definitely something. I might even try it. I've never really played the Resident Evil franchise, so maybe it would be
Give
a
it a
good
go.
place for me to give it a go, see what it's like. However, there is one final topic I do want to touch on, and it's Sony have reportedly shifted, or they are reportedly shifting first-party development focus onto PS5. Apparently PS5 dev kits are out there, and there's been positive things said about them. What are our thoughts about this? Excited for the next gen?
Yeah, I think we all are, aren't we? At this point, I mean, I'm still enjoying games this gen, but I'm starting to get that itch now. It's coming into 2019. I'm starting to get that itch for a new console. It's been, just over 6 years, isn't it? Just over 5 years since the Xbox One and PS4 came out. So
Yeah.
it's getting to that stage where I remember. I think it was in 2012, 2011, when we all were like, "Oh, we just want next gen now." We're kind of getting bored of this gen, and it's starting to get a little bit like that now. So I'm definitely excited to see what's in store.
How long do you think it'll be then? With this sort of news, what's the time frame do you think for the next gen release?
I think end of next year is a pretty safe bet for both consoles, to be honest. I mean, there could be a surprise in store. Maybe one of them will come out sort of March, April 2020, but I just don't think so. I think with all the rumours and noises that are coming out, it seems like it's about an 18-month period from now that they'll probably come out. So you're looking at probably October, November 2020, I reckon, is a safe bet to assume.
How about you, Perks? Matty, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm not that excited for a next gen console, to be honest with you yet. Just because I feel like there's diminishing returns in sort of visuals. It was kind of different with the Xbox 360 and PS3 because that was a long generation for multiple reasons. It was one of the longest generations for consoles in sort of recent memory. So obviously with sort of PS5, I do feel like the time is near. Traditionally, console generations only last 5-6 years, so we will definitely be seeing a new console soon. But I just don't have the hype factor for it yet, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's understandable. How about you, Perks?
I kind of share the same sentiments there, to be honest with you. I don't think I ever really get truly excited about stuff like that until it gets very close to the time. Like, obviously, we've all watched E3 together for years, and we've enjoyed what we've seen, but until it's just a few months away and my pre-order's set in stone and I can really sort of feel part of it, I don't really get excited about something that we might be talking about is almost 2 years away, maybe sort of a year and 3/4.
Yeah, you mentioned pre-order, Perks. The age-old question will be coming up. Which one are we going to get? The new Microsoft release? Or new Xbox, or the new PS5?
Got to see both the consoles first.
I know.
I think, to be honest,
but that question will be coming up.
Yeah, I'm just feeling more towards Xbox in the minute. I think at the minute, I don't know. I'm not saying that PlayStation can be bad or anything. I'm sure it's going to be great, but I think at the minute I'm more leaning towards just Xbox again. Right now,
I'm surprised that we bought an Xbox after the start of last gen.
I think it's going to be different next gen. I don't think it's going to be the same as 2013. I think Microsoft are going to be a lot more positive next generation. We've already seen signs about, haven't we, with the acquisitions they're making with studios. They're gearing up for next gen, and I think Microsoft next gen will definitely be a bigger player than they were this gen. I still think PlayStation will probably overall take it. I think that their user base is massive, and a lot of that user base will just transition across to PS5. But I think Xbox are definitely going to be more popular than this gen, and I think you'll see more hits from the next generation. I'm fairly confident in that.
Yeah,
fairly confident.
So, I mean, as long as you don't see Microsoft or Sony do anything completely drastic or crazy close to the launch of the actual new consoles, then I agree. We'll see a more sort of shared sort of sales market going forward. But with Sony probably just remaining out.
I think, yeah,
one
they'll
of
be
these
in front.
consoles, will not have a disc drive.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a massive mistake if Xbox do that. I know digital's getting bigger, but you can already see the headlines, can't you? You can just envisage it'd be another 2013 all over again. I don't think Microsoft are that stupid to do that. Now you might see a double skew where it's like one has no disc drive and one does. I can see that, but I can't see them just going completely.
It always fragments the
Just
market.
can't see it.
I always feel like fragmenting the market with consoles is a bad idea. Like the whole sort of Xbox 360 when that came out, and it was like you can have the Xbox 360 core or you can have the Xbox 360 Premium with a massive 20 gig hard drive. It's like it should just all be the same. Yeah, all be the same SKU.
But I mean, do you not think there'd be a massive backlash? The fact there was no discs. You can already envisage headlines, especially nowadays with the digital world. You know, everyone just will go on Twitter and go, "Oh, look, Microsoft again, back to 2013." I just can't see it. They'd be idiots to do that. Absolute idiots. They might want to do that. They probably do want to do that deep down in their hearts. But I think that they must be smart enough to realise that a large portion of their audience still buys physical games. And
I agree, but
them.
I think 2013, the world wasn't ready for what Microsoft were proposing as a method of distribution for games. I think we are actually slowly getting closer towards that. I mean, I don't want to see it either. I absolutely love discs, but
I don't think we're there yet, though, with internet speeds.
They're making extremely forward-thinking moves, Microsoft, in everything that they're doing at the moment, and I just think the maximum discs last is one more generation. But even that, like, I don't know. It's really going to be very interesting to see if one of these two go discless for this console, for the PS5 or Xbox One.
I think the two, yeah, I would agree with Xbox are far more likely. I can't envisage a scenario where PlayStation don't have a disc drive. You might think, oh, they can get away with it because they've got a big user base. User bases are fickle. They'll just all transport over to Xbox if that's the case, all the physical users. I can't see it. I just don't see why you do it. It's too much of a gamble. It'd be too much of a gamble. I think it'd be silly.
The main issue that they've got to tackle isn't even getting rid of the disc drive. It's getting rid of the disc drive and also retaining backwards compatibility, because people have Xbox One discs and they have PS4 discs, and we're assuming, unless Sony and Microsoft are stupid, that both these consoles from day one are going to be backwards compatible.
We know Xbox is 100% certainty, don't we? I mean, it's obvious. There's no way it's not going to be backwards compatible. They've gone down this route now. The original Xbox games, 360 games, Xbox One games, they're all in the same family. So PlayStation is a bit more up in the air. I still think it's very likely they're going to have backwards compatibility. I can't see why they wouldn't. I think they'd be shooting themselves in the foot if they didn't at least have backwards compatibility with PlayStation 4. They could even try and do it for PS3, 2, and 1, but I think PS4 they'll definitely have backwards compatibility for. But yeah, I'd be interested. What do you two think about it?
I think it would be a mistake. I could just imagine, Xbox announcing discless console, and then
imagine
just
the meme.
Sony.
You can see the memes already, can't you?
Yeah, I can imagine then Sony just coming out and going, "Yay, we've got discs. You can use discs."
This is
on
how
our
you
console.
They do the thing where it's like, this is how you put a disc in the PlayStation 4.
Yeah, just like in
and show a stupid
2013.
Yeah, I can see it as well.
Xbox. So I think it would be a mistake. It would be a big
ridiculous.
gamble. So it's probably not worth doing. How about you, Perks?
I mean, we've talked before, haven't we, about the possibility that Microsoft will continue to release the sort of family of Xboxes, and when we talked about them probably bringing a streaming box to the market, that would be the discless one rather than the main console, in my opinion, because that would make the most sense, because that's not such a drastic measure. I mean, if it's a streaming box, then it doesn't particularly need a disc drive. But I think if we're talking about their sort of, if they were to release 2 or even 3 different SKUs and iterations of the new Xbox, whatever their equivalent of the Xbox One X would be, I think it would need a disc drive, at least for one more generation, and then after that we'll probably see a market in which disc drives just don't exist with consoles anyway.
Yeah.
But I think next time out, the most powerful version of the next Xbox will definitely have a disc drive, in my opinion.
It's the
And
way
I
it should
think
go.
PlayStation exactly the same.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see. That's for sure, and I'm sure we'll be keeping our eagle eyes out for it. Anyway, that's the end of the podcast. So, where can people find you on social media, Sud?
You can find me on Twitter at David10Spud.
Lovely stuff. How about you, Perks?
I'm at JG Perks.
No longer at Corpse. Rest in peace at Corpse. How about you, Matty?
At Matty Cheatham on Instagram and Twitter.
Nice stuff. And
Cool.
if you yeah, cool. And if you if you
Radical,
wanna
bro.
radical, Jesus, that feels very 2000s, early 2000s.
Yeah,
saying
it
something
really
like
That's the bad old days.
that. Anyway, you can
Bad old
find
days.
me on
For
social
the good old
media
days.
at Twitter and Instagram at Leld LEL3Ds, add a 9 on the end for Instagram. You can also find Checkpoint Reach Podcast on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at Chet Reach Pod. We're also on YouTube, Checkpoint Reach Podcast. And if you're listening to us on YouTube, give us a like, give us a share, ring the bell. And if you have any questions or any debates or discussions you want to bring up for the show, then send your thoughts in to our social media. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining us as always. It's been fun.
Yeah, it has been good. Enjoyed it today.
Yeah, as
Good
Perks would say,
discussion.
it's been radical, bro. So
Yeah.
For 1 week only.
for 1 week only. So we hope you've enjoyed listening to it too, and we also hope you have a good week. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
See you guys.
Bye.
Thank you.